Turning down to the right diameter for the ferrule is critical. You can always take more wood off, but it's impossible to put it back. Well, Don, in this video, you're going to have to eat those words. This is WB Fine Woodworking with Don Bullock. Hi there and welcome to WB Fine Woodworking. I'm Don. As with any of the things that I do, I'm still learning. And when I made this birdcage awl as part of a challenge from Rob over at Make Things on YouTube, I made a rather big mistake.
Big mistake! Big!
And this video will show you what I did to fix that mistake. In my video turning for the ferrule, I pointed out that I went too far back and made the space too wide. And I actually even gouged out a groove with my spindle gouge.
Oops.
Needless to say, I wasn't happy with the results. Well, I could fill it with filler, that might work. But then I thought, no, I need to come up with a better idea. Then all of a sudden I thought, what would Rob do? He'd use epoxy. So I had my fix for my mistake.
Use the top-notch epoxy.
I chose to use 30-minute epoxy for the job because I thought it would give me a little more working time than the 5-minute epoxy does. I also decided to add some color to the epoxy, and so I bought this can of turquoise powder through Amazon.
Is that real turquoise?
This is what the powder looks like in the can. It's supposed to be real turquoise, but I have a feeling it's probably something else. There's a possibility that it's chrysocolla and not turquoise. To protect the area around my mistake, I decided to mask everything off thoroughly. I placed the awl on my silicone mat with all my silicone utensils for gluing. While I'm mixing up the two-part epoxy, let me remind you that I have a video on glue and silicone don't mix. That's actually how Rob and I met. He watched my video and contacted me. Rob was so thrilled that he now had a way to keep from messing up his workbench with all his gluing. If you ever watch any of his videos, you'll notice that he's gluing on top of a baking mat that's made out of silicone. Now that my epoxy is fully mixed up, I'm going to mix in some of the powder. I mixed in way too much powder. I really needed just 1 or 2 of those scoops. I used the tongue depressor to mix the epoxy and the powder as best I could, but again, that was way too much powder. With the powder and the epoxy mixed up, I used one of my silicone tools to cover that area where I gouged out the handle. I made sure that I thoroughly filled up that space.
I am fixing my mistake.
When I removed all that masking tape, this is what the handle looked like without that epoxy and turquoise powder. It looks like a mess. So obviously there's going to be some sanding that needs to be done here. It's rather ironic that in the video on turning for the ferrule, I said that you can't put wood back. Well, when I fixed this mistake, that's essentially what I did. I put some wood back, only in the form of some epoxy. And since I don't have the lathe available to do the sanding, I'm going to have to do it by hand. So I twisted the handle back and forth with one hand and used my other hand to hold a piece of sandpaper around that part of the handle. It took a while, but here's the result. A fine line of turquoise embedded in epoxy right above the ferrule. While this may not be the best looking fix, it works for me.
Hey, that looks pretty good.
It's also sort of a reminder to me to be more careful in the future. And in the mind of a turner, you might call this one of those design-changing opportunities. Once I'd fixed the mistake, I looked at it and thought this might be a design feature that I could use in the future. Of course, if I did, I'd make sure that the groove was a lot more consistent than it was, and I'd put that in as part of my plan, not as a fix for making a mistake. And now some words from our sponsors.
Puppy, 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 puppy. Come on, puppy, 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 puppy. Come on, puppy, puppy, puppies. Come on, come on, come on, puppy, puppy, puppies. Come on. Come on, puppy, puppy, puppy.
A special thank you to those who have subscribed to the channel too. And here are a few photos of the finished awl. The finish I used was spray lacquer. This birdcage awl has already become very handy in my shop. I'm using it here to mark the center of a turning blank. One of the special features of a birdcage awl is that the blade is short, which makes it easier to find the center. There's no need to tap a birdcage awl with a hammer or mallet, just twist and it drills the hole for you. Well, that was my solution to my mistake. What would be your solution? Tell me down in the comments below. Special thanks to Rob for making the challenge. I'm really glad that I had this all. There's a link to another video in this series over here. And if you click on my logo over here, you subscribe to the channel. Thank you all very much for watching.